Tanya Roof, meetings together. So what'd you think of Domain G? I was actually excited to get back into the actual meeting planning. So I really enjoyed these last two skills. So hopefully you did too. Again, we only did the two skills, and Domain G makes up 34% of the exam. So 51 questions from the exam come from Domain G. So we are breaking it up into small, manageable pieces so we can get through this and also to learn the information. So I hope you enjoyed these last two skills. So let's jump in. I'm going to go ahead and hide my mic or video here so I don't get distracted. All right, so event design. Event design is a process that starts with development of event objectives that align with overall objectives of the sponsoring organization. Those objectives drive all decisions about program, content, venue, theme, decor, food, and marketing. So basically, your event design is your theme. So when you establish your goals and objectives, what kind of meeting am I going to have? What do I want to accomplish? Then you get to have fun planning it and making sure that every decision that you make is tied to achieving those goals and objectives. So the event design is just super exciting and one of the best parts about meeting planning. All right, so types of delivery methods. So there are quite a few, and you want to make sure that you know all of the different types and what makes each one special. So you want to kind of listen for buzzwords or words that are going to make that key term stand out, like bar camp, for example. So the definition of bar camp is these are participant-led conferences where everyone who attends contributes a demonstration or session or otherwise volunteers in a way to contribute to the event. So how I explained it in Pathway to Passing was that when you're at a bar and you've stayed at the bar too long, that's when you start to volunteer information like spreading gossip. And a lot of people, when you're at the bar, that's when they start talking. So kind of think about volunteering in a way to contribute to the event. So that was my one way of remembering that one. And so go through each of these, make sure you know the definition, like the fishbowl. It's an interchange between the inner circle debating on an issue and an outer circle of observers. So that one you can kind of think, okay, observers. So when you're watching a fish in a fishbowl, you're the observer, right? And then the other thing is, do you remember those, like, gosh, we used to put them on the banquet tables as centerpieces, like what a small little fishbowl looks like with the little ring on the outside on the top. You know, so the three rings of a fishbowl. So kind of think of it that way. So try to come up with little fun things so you can, know the difference between a symposium and a seminar and a workshop, things like that. So make sure you know all your key term definitions for that. And then we have our Phillips ROI Methodology Pyramid. We talked about this in strategic planning, but it's coming back up again. So you definitely want to make sure you know all the levels and what's included in each level. So the level 0 starts it. So the level 0 is your inputs and indicators. And level 1 is your reaction and satisfaction. So how did your attendees perceive the event? And then level 2 is the learning. So all of the information at the event, see this little brain exploding with everything that it's learning. And then level 3 is the application. So how did they actually apply what they learned? So that's a little brain out there on the treadmill applying all of the information that it learned. And then level 4 is the impact. So what change came about because of the information that they applied and learned at your event? So that's level 4 is the impact. Then level 5 is this is where your ROI is measured. And again, only 5% of meetings are measured at that ROI level 5. And then lastly, level 6 at the top, these are your intangibles. So like leadership and things like that. And it's a little joke saying, Helen, you're the team leader. Why don't you jump first? They've got little flight packs on and jump out of the airplane. So if you can't see the cartoon there. So make sure that you understand, again, the pyramid for the Phillips ROI methodology. The other thing that I wanted to make sure that you understood was the different documents that that they mentioned. So like the ESG, the agenda, attendee agenda, things like that. So make sure you understand that. And then also gamification was mentioned in here. So make sure you understand what gamification is and that you want to make sure that you're using it only if it makes sense for your audience and your goals and objectives, right? So if you have a lot of people who don't bring their smartphones or don't use technology at your conference, then setting up a gamification where you have to use an event app to log in wouldn't make any sense. So make sure that you're always making decisions based on whether they're going to get you closer to your event goals and objectives. So that was pretty much it for skill 14. Moving on to skill 15, talking all about speakers. So determine meeting or event requirements for speakers and performers. So the first step, you remember, we always want to remember, like, what is the first step? The first step is to determine objectives and learning outcomes. So you want to determine what type of speaker is going to get you the best results for your attendees. So you always want to consider the needs of the attendees. You want to consider your audience. Will it be live or virtual? Well, we all know lots of them are being virtual now. I was on CVent call this week, and they had their conference virtual. Anyways, so consider the needs of the attendees and the educational goals. Consider the type of speaker. So again, you want to make sure that it aligns with the goals and objectives of the theme that you have selected for your event. So yesterday I received a email from Smart Meetings. They're having their Women of the Year or Women in Meetings event. It's like their 5th annual event. I haven't ever gone. I've wanted to go. Anyways, so the speaker lineup for this Women in Events, they're all women. So that makes sense to the goals and objectives, and the theme of the event is to have all women speakers if you're highlighting and honoring women in events. So their keynote speaker is the first NFL coach. I don't remember her name, but so again, that's an example, a real life example of why speakers, hiring your speakers that apply towards your theme and the goals and objectives. You also want to consider budget and availability of the speaker. I think the next one is about, the speaker bureaus. So ways to find speakers. So you can use a speaker bureau. There is a fee that is involved, but normally it is set into the price of the speaker. So the speaker bureaus work pretty much like convention bureaus. So they have like where the CVB represents different hotels within the city, the speaker bureau represents different speakers within their organization. So it's always a good best practice to work through a speaker bureau, just because they have availability or accessibility to multiple speakers and can help you really zone in and make sure that if you share your goals and objectives with them, they'll be able to match you with a speaker. You also want to make sure that you are getting recommendations from an organization. It's not just someone you found off the internet, someone that you can trust, personal referrals, recommendations from colleagues. If you have the opportunity to see a speaker in person, so you can see how they tailor their speech and to the event audience. You also want to request videos, anything where you can see the speaker in action to see if they're going to be a good fit for your event. So then when you're selecting, you want to come up with a selection criteria and strategy. So this is from the EIC book. And the first step is understanding what skills will best help achieve the event objectives. So again, hiring that keynote speaker, the women NFL coach, that is going to go towards the objectives of the event. Hiring a male for this women in events wouldn't make sense. So that's what you always want to make sure that you're understanding the needs of the attendees and the objectives. So on the left here in the column is all of the criteria. And so then you're going to come up with a criteria weight. So on a scale of 1 to 10, you're going to assign a number, 1 being low, high, 10 being high, on how important, how much weight does it mean to the event goals and objectives. So like a relevant topic. Well, content is king, especially now with virtual. So you want to make sure that a relevant topic is pretty highly weighted on your scale. So that's going to be at like a 10. Willing to adapt to topic, audience. Okay, maybe a little more flexibility on that. References. So this example is, you know what? I want to make sure that all your references check out. You need to get an A+ from everybody that's used you. So that's going to rate a little bit higher. And then, kind of like in human resources, how we learned, you want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. And this scale will help you compare that by asking all the same questions and weighing each speaker all the same. So every speaker is going to be different, but the criteria that you rate them on and score them on should all be consistent. Just like in human resources, when you're interviewing someone, you want to make sure that you're asking the same questions for everybody. So same thing with the speaker criteria. You want to make sure that you're basing all the speakers on the same criteria. And then develop a selection strategy or multiple strategies. So how are you going to find them? So are you going to use a speaker bureau to help find your keynote? Are you going to use your program planning committee to help find breakout speakers? So come up with a strategy. Again, everything ahead of time. And then it's kind of cut off on the picture here, but at the very end, after you've interviewed your 3 speakers, you add up their weight or their score to come up with the best speaker for the event objectives. Okay, so then once you found your golden speaker, you want to confirm and contract. Like anything, word of mouth, we want to make sure that we have everything in writing. So let's execute a contract with the speakers. And if you're using a speaker bureau, you want to make sure, is your contract with the speaker bureau or is it with the speaker? So these are all the things you want to know to include in the contract. I won't read them all off, so make sure that you understand what needs to be in there, as well as at the very bottom there, the legal implications. That is, it reminds me of the music licensing. I always say it's the ASPCA. The little animal shelter is what I'm always thinking, but it's actually ASCAP. So the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. And those people are protected. Those are the ones who like write the lyrics. And then there's the Broadcast Music Incorporated, the BMI, and that is more of producers and record companies. But make sure that you understand that in the US, it's the ASCAP. And then you also want to make sure that you understand that the event professional is ultimately responsible for making sure that the authors and songwriters are getting credit. So you want to make sure that you know that the event planner is who is responsible. It's not the DJ, it's not the band, it's the event planner. So you want to make sure you are aware of all those legal implications and So make sure to know that. And then before making the booking, secure the speaker's written agreement that they will send you an outline of the presentation at a certain time. So this way you can use it for marketing purposes, and it really kind of locks it in even more. It allows you to maybe use it for marketing and get your attendees excited, things like that. And then best practices, set up the speaker for success by providing them all the information about your organization. What, some buzzwords. In our industry, we have all of our, acronyms that we use. And so if you could inform the speaker and give them a profile of the attendees, the demographics, the, event objectives especially. So this way they can tailor their presentation based on your goals and objectives, because they want it to be very well received. They're not just up there talking to hear themselves talk. They want to make sure that that your attendees, the needs of the attendees are being met. So you want to prepare the speaker as much as possible. And then set the stage and make sure you discuss with the speaker the layout of the room before diagrams are finalized. Some speakers like to be up high where they can see everybody. Some people like to wander through the audience. So you want to make sure that you're always communicating and find out their preference. And then again, I talked a little bit about generating excitement through marketing. Have them on their social media channels advertise that they're going to be at your conference or your event if it's appropriate. And then so it allows the excitement through not only your channels but their channels as well. And then always evaluating the results. We want to make sure that we are keeping good records and keeping track of what works, what didn't work, and then of course always sharing your results with the speakers. Okay, so we have this, remember how it's kind of off track. So we know that we just read skills 14 and 15, not 13 and 14. And just to throw an extra little wrench in this, this skill 13.2 to 13.5 has really nothing to do with meeting and event design. This actually belongs in domain B. So develop the theme for a meeting or event. That belongs. We talked about that. So basically this is, when you come up with your theme, kind of like, that you want to find out the needs of the attendees, and then develop your goals and objectives, and then you develop your theme. So, when I think theme of an event, I always think of like a holiday. If it's the Halloween party, you have a Halloween theme. So all of your decorations are going to be more like black and orange and spooky. You're not going to have, Christmas decorations at a Halloween party. So that's what the theme, event design, that kind of all, I attribute it to holidays and stuff like that. So maybe that will help you. So 3.2, this is, I guess we could go over it. It's good practice for knowing domain B stuff. Develop procurement strategy for acquisitions of goods and services in accordance with the project plan. We know how to do that. Analyze the project plan to determine the critical path. You guys remember what the critical path was? It's that chain. Remember the chain link fence, or the chain? It's the chain of activities that has to start on time and stay on track. And then develop integrated communication plan to align with goals and objectives. That's the communication plan, the communication matrix. Develop evaluation procedures. That was, I think that's what's, don't remember exactly where that was in Plan B. I think that's talking about in the planning stages, and then just evaluating the meetings and getting the evaluations. Maybe it was the difference between evaluations and audits. Maybe that's what it was. And then identify program components using a variety of data to determine the program is inclusive. So that's finally back to actual meeting and event design. That was talking about, remember, the team building sessions, entertainment, comedians, your food and beverage events, like the factors that you want to consider, like the budgets and what the goals of the stakeholders are and your profile for attendees. So that's the different the program components that you want to know. And then define program content and delivery methods aligned with meeting goals and objectives in support of the strategic plan. So that was the different delivery formats, like the bar camps and debates and fishbowl, things like that. And then analyze the event outcomes according to predefined metrics to measure achievement of goals and objectives. So that was our Phillips ROI methodology. So that's it for skill 14. And then engaging speakers and performers. Determine meeting or event requirements for speaker and performers using event design to align with meeting goals and objectives. That was the, talking that the speakers should match the content. So, at a women's conference, having the NFL women's star, or, if you, again, if a gamer was the speaker, that's really not going to go over for women, but having a gamer for, teenagers would go over great. So just making sure that you understand requirements and that it matches your goals and objectives. Define strategies and criteria for speaker and performer selections, referencing goals and objectives to fulfill the program requirements. So that's the sample weighted scale system that we talked about. Choose speakers or performers using selection criteria to achieve meeting or event objectives. Maybe that one was the criteria. How are you going to select that's what it was. Like if you're going to use a speaker bureau, or are you going to rely on your program planning committee? How are you going to find these speakers, and what criteria? Secure speaker and performer contracts and communicate expectations aligned to event design and achieve meeting and event objectives. So again, you want to make sure that you're always contracting and getting everything in writing, and that you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that the speaker will deliver. Okay, so that was it for 14 and 15. Not too bad. We had it went by pretty quick. I hope it did for you guys too. 14 and 15 is what we did this week. Chapter 4 in PMM. So I suggested just reading 15 pages since it's about 30 pages in this chapter. So if you did that, great. If you actually finished 4, that's great too, because we're going to read the other half this week. And then 45 minutes on those glossary terms. And we want to make sure that we time block for next week. And that's it. Kind of a light load, right? We only have one skill next week, and it's food and beverage, one of my favorites. I'm sure you know that. Okay, so next week, August 30th to September 5th is skill 16. So this whole week, all we're going to focus on is skill 16 and reading or working on 45 minutes of glossary vocab, and then finishing up chapter 4 if you hadn't finished it this week. So that's it for this week. Have a fabulous time this weekend, and we'll see you next week for skill 16. Bye.